I believe life is about being on a wellness adventure, and since 2017, I've been on a quest of redefining how to create an unmistakably high quality life. It's involved relearning my primal instincts, reclaiming the power of unshakable belief in myself, revamping what is in my kitchen from food to water, and rediscovering the practical wisdom in regular everyday moments. I'm hungry to expose how easy it is to live a vibrant and fulfilling life that is equally good for us and the planet. Here on the Isabelle Wellman Show, we weave the practical and the mystical to evolve into the highest quality versions of ourselves in order to lead a long-lasting ripple effect. Together, let's lay it all out on this wellness adventure. Welcome back to Isabelle Wellman Show. On today's show, I am letting you know why I do not celebrate New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, and maybe why this could be a great show to listen to or watch on YouTube if you are feeling not so inspired by the hype of what this day has been known to celebrate, which is the moving forward of, the flipping of a chapter, the end of a book, whatever you'd like to relate it to. In my opinion, we are not in the space of collectively or individually moving on to the next chapter. And I'm going to explain all of that why. So the few things I'm going to talk about today are how change happens significantly over time. And if you are given an idea that does not make sense with your reality, but there's some little sliver of truth that you find in it, over time, you are going to learn more about that if you seek to learn more about it. And even if you do not seek to learn more about it, different events and people and conversations and articles, what have you, may find themselves merging their way downstream towards you. And I say downstream because there's going to be little to no resistance in this coming to you. Perhaps if it's coming upstream, it could be a really important matter, but there's resistance, whether it's on your end, most likely, because we are the human factor. We are the ones who have the human emotions that dictate how easily things come upwards or downwards to us. And if so, this event could be coming up to you with a lot of force, a lot of pressure that is uncomfortable. And that can look anything like breaking a bone to slow you down, or ending a relationship to teach you a lesson, or to show you where you are repeating a cyclical pattern in your life that may need to be broken in order for you to achieve the type of relationship you wish to have, whether that be romantic, with yourself, with a boss. And so these are different ways. They're not the only ways, just two small examples how life could go upstream to gift us something that we are being stubborn and or resistant to, but we really need to get the picture or the experience to expand us, hopefully. And that comes with a consciousness level. And that's a whole other tale, but I'm going to be talking more on that, as well as when does the new year, quote unquote, actually start, and a little bit of the history on New Year's Eve celebrations. And I found an article from Medium by Yesha Matthews. I will link it below. I give her full credit, of course, for this, but I think it's very powerful. And I think when we are presented an opposing perspective, we grow as humans. You do not have to agree with any of this, yet to witness and respect and listen as a part of your growth as a human could be really beneficial. And that's why I invite you into this. This is all an invitation. And I want to give a shout out, a thank you to a dear sister of mine, Paulina, for being who she is and being a way shower. For myself, I collided with her energy in 2020, maybe the end of 2020. And it was life-changing. And little by little, every year, I've been able to develop more of my own authentic capacity to turn inward, to grow as an individual, to take responsibility in my life, to understand where I have a strong backbone of integrity and where I am still developing this backbone, and how we can always be inviting one another into this larger field of awareness without it being intimidating, frustrating, or out of anger, or out of petty, or out of pride, or out of I know better than you, because that's never it. That's never the answer. And I can say all of these things and come to this awareness in myself because I've had people, sisters like Paulina, like the Women's Convergence in Greece, NYE, that she has been leading us in for the past 2 years, calling upon those who feel ready to explore and to relearn and to experiment with and to get a new perspective on life and how we participate as nature, because we are nature. So I want to send just a deep, loving gratitude message to her and a lot of love, because of her, I've been able to continue to wipe my lenses clean over and over and over again. I'm not perfect. I never will be. And this life is all about learning and growing and expanding. And that is what this little lens wiping is for me, is that constant expansion. So let's dive into it, shall we? Grab your warm beverage. This is Mudwater's OG blend. What's it called? Rise, I believe they call it now. I drink it with a little filtered water, almond milk that only has sea salt, and the blend. A little manuka honey, a little clove, a little extra Ceylon cinnamon, and nutmeg. And it's delicious. It tastes great. And it helps replace the addiction or the unintentional drinking of the powerful substance of coffee. That's another topic for another day. I'd love to talk to a coffee specialist and someone who understands the powerful energetics behind coffee. It's a beautiful ritual when we use it in the right manner, in the right light, in the right intention, right? The right setting. No right and wrong, but there is a unconscious way of doing things and a conscious way of doing things. And we choose whatever way we wish to go. I have personally found, and I'm sure because you're listening, you have found this in your own life, that living more consciously and having a purpose behind everything, seeing your life as a ritual, taking the toothpaste top off of the toothpaste, brushing your teeth, and then putting it back on when you're done, closes that ritual. Now you can move on. You're good until the end of your day, before you rest, before you go into the other reality of the dream land, and you brush your teeth again. Cleanse yourself before going into the new reality. So I'm sure you are interested in these things. So I use 1 cup of coffee in the AM with a fat, ghee, grass-fed, grass-finished butter, coconut oil, and then I move on to a mushroom type of drink or a turmeric type of latte or a chai or something that's different, like a matcha. Just different energetics behind everything. And that is where I'm moving myself the rest of this year, is more energetically involved and aware. So I do want to start out with the history of New Year's Eve and why it might not be settling in your bones, like it's not settling in my bones. So this was not written by me. This was written by, like I said, Isha Matthews. This was written on December 31st of 2017, so here we go. Although the concept of turning over the year in the solar or lunar cycle is as ancient as human acknowledgement, there has been great disparity about exactly when the official turn of the year happens. The earliest recorded celebration of the new year in Mesopotamia in about 2000 BCE. At that time, the new year was celebrated around the date of the vernal equinox. Many cultures followed the cycles of nature as their temporal system, and that meant the new year was usually celebrated between the winter solstice and the vernal equinox. It was decidedly a quote-unquote return of the light, unquote, holiday. Later, the imposition of a man-made calendar assigned the new year to March 1 in Rome. In fact, the months of January and February did not come into existence until 700 BCE, when Numa Pompilius named and instituted them. Before the revision of the calendar by Julius Caesar, Roman officials noted this date with the installment of 2 consuls into the highest offices in the land in homage to Janus, the two-faced god of transitions and thresholds. After Julius Caesar revised the calendar in Rome in 46 BCE and was subsequently assassinated, Roman officials in 42 BCE chose to defy him on January 1st and paid him annual reverence thereafter. In 567, the Roman Catholic Council of Tours dismantled the celebration of New Year's on January 1, setting it as a quote-unquote pagan, unquote, holiday. During this time, the New Year was celebrated regionally on different dates throughout Catholic Europe: December 25th, March 1st, March 25th, the Feast of Annunciation, and Easter represent some of the approved days for celebration of the New Year. But oh, how those rascally pagans persisted. In 7th century Flanders/Netherlands, Roman Catholic Saint Eligius wrote a warning about New Year celebrations. Quote, "Do not make vetules, little female statues, vetula in Latin means old woman, little deer or itokikos, excuse me for not pronouncing this right, or set tables at night for the house spirits, or exchange New Year's gifts or supply superfluous drinks," unquote. In 1582, Gregorian calendar reform reinstalled New Year at Jan 1, through many countries still continue to absorb their own dates and celebrations. Notably, the British Empire, including the U.S. colonies, did not acknowledge January 1 as the official start of the new year until 1752. Prior to that, British New Year was celebrated on March 25th, known as Lady Day. New Year's Eve/day in the U.S. falls on the borderline between the 31st of December and January 1 in the Gregorian calendar. Thus, January 1 as the official New Year in the U.S. is a man-made acknowledgement of a natural event, the Earth's journey around the sun. After all of the back and forth of religious politics around the state in Rome and beyond, we can hardly call it purely secular holiday. So if New Year's is actually a spiritual holiday, and specifically a pagan one, there must be vestiges of ritual and meaning in its celebration, right? And this is where she continues to go on about talking about yes and no. There's celebrations, but there's also not. And this is where I'm going to end quoting her article. I am going to put it in the show notes for you because I do think it's very fascinating and helpful to read. And so you can just ingest and consume that whole thing, and you can digest it as you need. I'm now going to move on to my own belief about all of this. So I agree that, and I believe personally, of course, that celebrating New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, is a bit of supporting this illusion that we are living a synthetic routine and lifestyle. I'm currently being mentored by a Tai Chi master, so to say, and some things I'm learning along the way are very subtle yet impactful. And a book that I've been gifted the acknowledgement of, a read that I just felt very called to instantly get, has been The Journey to Ixalan. It's by Cameron Casandida. I'll put it in the show notes. I do not believe that's the correct name, but it is the journey of a scholar from, I believe, Yale or Harvard, one of those two, going and meeting a Native American who has this mastery behind peyote and the magic of the plant and being able to intertwine with this natural substance to teach him something. Yet, pieces of this book are really jumping out of how we as human beings like to attach. Our egos love to have a seat on the stage and have a personal history. We love building our life off of this known way that everyone knows us by, making us super accessible. Everyone knows everything about us. There is no life that people do not know. And I have, before even reading this book, began to undergo this transition with removing myself from Instagram in a very large way. I will occasionally post here and there important things to me that seem suitable and intentional to speak on, but it's very few since I took that step back or that boycott in July. At the beginning of July or the end of July, I forget which end I started that on. But this whole idea of coming back in tune with nature and not having a routine in the sense of I eat breakfast then, lunch, and then dinner at these times every day. If the boss tells me it's lunchtime, I stop my work, I drop it, and then I go eat lunch. There is not that type of routine in my life, and I found that to be very satisfying. I am often, yes, following things that I do finish and take action on because it's the way I wish to go and I wish to move, yet it's not a scheduled way of being. And yes, I do acknowledge not everyone has chosen to live this way. And notice how I say not everyone has chosen to live this way, because not everyone has made it to whatever understanding this may be in themselves to feel safe and comfortable to explore that avenue. That is okay. We all have our different avenues. We know where we wish to go. I have chosen an avenue that is pushing me beyond comfort and allowing me to grow in ways that feel more natural, present, and in tune with nature. Right now, we are in winter. So getting to this part of this puzzle piece where why are we celebrating a new year, a new season, when we are in the dead of winter? Winter is the archetype and the energetics of the cold, of hibernation, of hunkering down, of eating a little bit more, resting a lot more, eating more root vegetables, hot, steamy stews, maybe casseroles. Perhaps we are having to unfreeze meat from the fall harvest or the fall hunt. Perhaps we are going and finding new ways to forage for what is available, be that mushrooms or different plants that do grow in this harsh climate if you are somewhere like the Northern Hemisphere where the ground freezes, like I am. Or if you're in an island, perhaps there's different fruits in season during this time, or there's different fish that are migrating into the waters that are available. Whatever it may be, we are living as one with nature. And so, if we are living as one with nature, it doesn't make sense to reflect on our whole life from this past 12-month era, if we're going back to December 31st of the year prior, and trying to shoot the gun and hit the target on the very next day. I do agree that reflecting during this period of time is extremely crucial. We do happen to have the astronomical and astrological placement of Mercury moving in its quote-unquote retrograde position, which is a beautiful time to slow down and to reflect, to recreate, to renew, to regenerate, to remember, to reflect on what has been going on in our lives the past 3 to 6 months. So yes, I do agree that that is a beautiful thing to do, because reflection is always a great thing to do, especially when we're in this dark capacity of a season. And then once March comes and we get that spring equinox, it will happen on March 19th of this year, or 2024. And that is the hurrah! That is the new year. That is the new season. That is the birth. The animals are coming out of hibernation. The plants are beginning to bloom again. The flowers are coming out. The winds are warmer. The mountains are melting their snow if they happen to receive snow in your part of the world. And the rivers are rushing and flourishing. New life is being brought everywhere in the world. Spring and fall happen to be times of the seasons where animals are typically a little more feisty and wanting to get it on and come into communion with one another, into a union, and to birth new life into the world. It's those transitionary points, the equinoxes, that happens at, versus the solstices, the extremes of both of those transitionary periods. Spring and fall, we know they aren't as harsh. They're the beginning of the beginning and the ending of the ending, or the beginning of the end, I should say. And then summer, we're in that extreme heat. We're in the extreme life. We're in the extreme flourish. We're at the peak point of life. And in the winter, we're at that null point of life. We're at the ending. We're at the, okay, we're not rebirthing in a way of giving out birth, but we may be rebirthing inside. It's all internal. We are allowing ourselves at a cellular level to replenish. We are nourishing ourselves. We're focusing on reserving energy. We're focusing on what is decomposing and what we are preparing and harnessing and renewing that will be rebirthed come spring. So we still have 3 months. I wish to ask you to I invite you to close your eyes if it is safe for you to do so, and to center with a big inhale and exhale when you're ready. And your eyes may remain closed, but I ask you, what does it feel like in your body when you think about the new year? Are you excited? Are you feeling like you haven't gotten enough done this year? Do you feel like you're off? Do you feel like there has to be some sort of body dysmorphia pledge to be had? Do you feel like there's going to be a failure if you do not cooperate with XYZ? Do you feel a rush of energy at this current time, one that may have just swept in the last week or so, prior to the holy days, the Christmas day coming in? Are you feeling rambunctious? What is it that you are feeling in your body? Of course, there's no right and wrong, and you have to be the one to answer this. Yet I encourage you to investigate, and in years past, reflect. What has been the outcome of New Year's Eve in your life? Has greatness unfolded? Has failure unfolded? Has mayhem unfolded? Has this inability to keep a certain pledge to yourself unraveled? You can keep your eyes closed for as long as you'd like. Yet I do invite you to reflect. I'll share that in 2011? I forget which year I was. No, 2008 or 9. I was a 6th grader, and I broke my nose on New Year's Eve. I was going too fast. I wasn't being cautious enough, and I was trying to move and train really hard for basketball season. I just made the travel basketball team. It was everything to me, and I broke my nose. Bit through my lip on New Year's Eve. Was in the ER. Heard them cheering for the ball drop, and then they came in to fix my face. And I thought that was interesting. Like, wow, I'm not in a like death situation, so it was something else, but I am being put on the back burner for them to watch a ball drop out of the sky and open up and dust everyone with sprinkles and confetti. Interesting. Yet I had to slow down and I had to stop and I couldn't play basketball. And there was no point in me getting a face shield. And that was a very big part in my life where I was like, whoa, my body is not ready to go full force. This is not the season to do that. And I did not know any of this at that time. But as I can reflect now, in the season of reflection of winters past, I can see how the universe was sending me that upstream message to help me in my development and to show me a different path. Perhaps I was never meant to play basketball, which I can assure you, I was not very gifted at. And it had me go towards sports such as swimming and gymnastics during the winter time. Much more suitable for where I would go in the future. So it's always working out for us. Yet we often cannot witness that when we're in it. When we're in it, it is difficult. So take a moment to digest all of this because it can be quite a lot to digest. Something that I am continuing to process in my own world is how I celebrate these holy days, such as Christmas. If you've ever listened to Rudolf Steiner's lectures, he has a great one on Christmas. I thank the Symbiotica founder, Sheravine, for sharing that knowledge from, the beginning of the 1900s. And this man was speaking to how we are so disconnected from one another because we're in this basically synthetic reality of man-madeness of you must do these things on these dates and these are the holy days and these are the days of energy when it does not actually compile with the real days of energy. Yes, we had the winter solstice on the 21st. That is the darkest day of the year. That is the deepest day inward to reflect, to release, to have a fire, to celebrate the winter spirits, to drink warm drinks, to eat hearty, earthful, nourishing foods, to sit with thyself and understand where you are at. And during the next few months, as we continue to gain light and we transition to the spring equinox and we have more light, more warmth, who are we going to strike ourselves to be then? What are we going to birth out into the world? What will be renewed, regenerated within us? I do enjoy picking a word that I put more focus on, that I allow to guide me for each season. And from winter to the next winter solstice is when I claim this word. My word of this year is regenerate. And if I can find my journal here quick, I will read you exactly what this is for me. So, regenerate is to renew, restore, recreate into a better, more complete form. Restore to a favorable state or condition. And revive, bring into existence again. It is a year of coming back to my origins. It is a year of discovering my family line, of how I have family that comes from Turkey, that comes from the Middle East, from Europe. Where do my Canadian roots come in? How can I bring this more fully into my life so I can sustain myself in ways that I may not get by reading a diet book or following the keto trend or by setting a body dysmorphia type of New Year's Eve resolution where I must gain 15 pounds of muscle so that I can look like the Hulk. It's silly. And that wouldn't make sense because if we look at it astrologically, we're in Capricorn season. Yes, the achiever, the goat, the workaholic, I'm going to get to the top of the mountain and I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to have success. On the other end of that is Cancer. Cancer, just like Capricorn, it is a cardinal sign or an initiator of a season. Cancer is the initiator of summer, yet it's the bottom part of the zodiac. It is the dark part of the zodiac. We just had the Cancer full moon very close to the winter solstice. And this is a season, a time all about our emotional bodies, our emotional charge. What is happening within us emotionally, around our family, around our local part of self? What can we discover by looking closer inward of our sphere? If you think about it, what's happening in your community, all the way to you, versus what's happening in the world, all the way until your state. To have both perspectives is great. That's just my analogy. I do believe that we need to be aware of what's happening in the Middle East, and we need to speak to the wrongness of it, where people are being killed and altered and dismantled and dismembered. What is happening? Why is this happening? What are the forces behind this happening? And can we cultivate compassion? Can we cultivate detachment from, oh, this, and that in the past, these different personal histories that build up on each other? Can we simply see it as people being killed over the desire of achieving a certain thing, such as power or money or land, which inherently does not belong to anyone, but to Earth as a whole, to us as a whole? Interesting questions to contemplate and an interesting perspective to take on. When we feel uncomfortable with what anyone says, that is when listening really gets to become an invitation. When we feel uncomfortable with something being said, we get to witness in ourselves where we may have a block, where we may not understand fully of a situation, where we may have a personal attachment to something, someone, some history, not herstory. Very interesting. And is there anything else I want to say on this matter? I think the last thing I want to ask you is, what do you feel in your bones? 'Tis the season astrologically of Capricorn, where we're dealing with structure, the bones. What is your foundation? Where did your foundation come from? For myself, I've been doing a lot of journaling with different realizations I've been having, different parts of this past 12 months where I have not fully shown up, or where I have fell short, or where I have grown, because I do think the reflection point from winter solstice to winter solstice is very important to undergo. And anytime we have the planet of Mercury dancing around in an opposite direction, I say that with air quotes because you may have heard it, but it's not actually moving backwards, it's just appearing to. So when that planet of communication that surrounds the archetypes, you can listen to the astrology series I put out. It will talk all about this. You're welcome. So I'm not explaining it here, but it's a time to go inwards. Like I said, recreate, renew, remember, reconstruct. So my last invitation is to figure out where in your foundation you may be weak, or where in your foundation you may have a hole, or you may have a broken board. Maybe your foundation is strong and you're feeling in rhythm with nature, and you're separating yourself from false realities that are created by technology that are an illusion of helpfulness and are helpful in some ways, yet may be disconnecting us on a real humane level of in-person connection, sharing, smiling, laughing, hugging, enjoying, and our connection with Earth. When's the last time you walked barefoot outside, even if there's snow on the ground? When is the last time you got extremely hot or extremely cold under your own will? When is the last time that you talked to the plants and you acknowledged their being? When is the last time that you watched an animal and simply enjoyed what you're watching? What about a sunrise, a sunset? Where are you and where can you see your own self in the reflection of nature, in the rustle of the river or of the leaves or of the decaying plants? What is decaying inside of you that is going to be given back to the earth to be recycled, composted, and come back as a different archetype, a different piece, a different foundational button? I have one last message to add in here. So I was finishing up and with my one last invitation, but I need to make this note. So this note is about how I want to also invite you into thinking about what actually happens on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. How much alcohol is consumed? How much sugar is consumed? How often are we actually celebrating the cold, dark, internal essence of winter versus wanting an excuse to get astonishingly hammered and then wake up on the first day of this so-called new year feeling like a pile of dog shit? Interesting when we have this very large dichotomy at hand, and how most of the time any large event or festival or celebration like this, especially like Christmas, Valentine's Day, Easter, there is some depth to these if we look a little deeper, or to similar events, yet the majority of it is to confirm our limited belief systems, eat a lot of sugar and not so great foods that are not from the earth, mostly skewed by unnatural products and chemicals. Yet, we don't even bat an eye at drinking at 9 a.m. all the way through the night. That's the last thing I want to just make a point on, of the unconscious level of misconsumption of substances like alcohol, for example, sugar, for example. They're one and the same. They affect us a little bit differently. And as I spoke on earlier, with an unconscious life comes unconscious actions, comes unconscious feelings that we do not learn from. With a conscious life, we drink all night, we wake up the next day, we realize how bad we feel, and we make a different decision. Behavior change is when you learn something and you make that change in your behavior. You learn and you apply. There's no need to bustle around the bush and, well, I can't eat this sugar, but I can eat that sugar, and I won't do this, but I can do that. Mother of Betsy, that's confusing everything about the brain and what is in an alignment for you. So, understanding your moral compass can be a really big help in this situation. And that is where I want to leave us, because are we really promoting a rebirth, a renewal of a season that isn't even complete and just started because of the winter solstice happening on the 21st? Yeah, that's the 31st of December / the 1st, and we're trying to jumpstart 3 months ahead when we're not in that space. And because commercialism and marketing and money people can make from advertising and playing with our emotions and our psychological needs. I hope this finds you well. And that is actually all I have to say. Enjoy this season of your life. I invite you to take this how you will, and if you feel called to share it, please do. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Please consider leaving a 5-star review, following along on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out the video version on YouTube, and come hang out with me on Threads. We are making an impact together every single day that we stand up and we share, we learn, and we thrive.